My name is Kit Lacey. I am here from a company called eDub, which takes care of 100% electric classic campervans. So we're going to be talking to you this morning and slightly into this afternoon around the history of eDub, what's brought us to where we are today, and then I'm going to open it up to some questions and hear all about what you want to ask me about our electric classic camper. So first I just want to say a big thank you to CleeW, who have kindly last minute invited us to come and speak at today's event. It's the first time I've been to this festival, and I'm a bit gutted that I'm only staying for a couple of hours to do this talk and speak to people, and then I've got to clear off. But it looks like you're all having a fantastic time. So I'm going to go right back to the beginning. And eDub was started in 2013. So this year is our 12th birthday. And all that time we've been passionate about electric classic campervans. And the concept came from myself just having one of those, how most silly ideas start, is having a silly idea, which is I was aware of classic campers, very passionate about classic campers, and I was aware of doing engine swaps, so Porsche swaps, Subaru swaps, things like that. And at that time, electric vehicles were just starting to become a bit more available, a bit more known, and so there was this concept in my brain of, well, if you can do an engine swap, why can't you do an electric motor swap? And the ironic statement I said to myself was, well, how hard can it be? Turns out it's quite hard. But we started anyway, we started a business, and the intention was to do kind of an immediate return on investment with the business, and so that was to start up as eDub Trips. So edubtrips.co.uk is where you can hire our electric campervan. So the concept was to convert a campervan to electric and then hire it out and let people use it and experience it and just see what it's all about. And that was going to be the end of the road. So the journey started. Within about 6 months, we spoke to a couple of, I won't say specialists, because there aren't really any specialists in 2013 around electric camper conversion. But we spoke to kind of pieces of the equation. So we spoke to a mechanic, we spoke to a kind of vehicle electrician, we spoke to kind of campervan enthusiasts, we hired a camper ourselves to see the process, and through all of that pieced together what eDub Trips was all about. And so we created Indy. So if you hop over to, there is a cream early bay camper outside the marquee to my left, to your right. That is our 100% electric. That's one of our conversions that I'll get onto. But over there after this talk, you can talk to me about hiring Indy, who is the camper that's available to hire. And so she was created. And it was done with a concept of, and so many people who had come to us either had never driven a classic camper before or had never driven electric before. And that was absolutely fine. We kind of expected people to be either familiar with electric or familiar with classic campers. But we found that people just weren't familiar with either. And it gave us a really clear insight that this needed to be really simple, needed to be really straightforward, needed to be really, the one to the phrase idiot-proof. It needed to work. So we intentionally put quite a small range on Indy. So Indy's got a 70-mile range. And that was deliberate because we didn't want people who had no idea kind of jumping in and driving hundreds and hundreds of miles and then finding problems or issues or little things that weren't quite right from maybe the classic camper angle or something else. And we wanted to make sure that she stayed nice and close to home. But also, I'm afraid I'm a passionate Yorkshireman. I've come from over the border. But also where we're based, which is up in a little village called Great Ousburn, which is kind of right off the A1 just towards York. And so from that place we were saying there are so many places that you can explore within that range. So people may say, oh, I want to hire Indy, but I want to go up to Scotland, or I want to go down across to Wales or down to Somerset. And my argument is you don't want to spend hours in a classic campervan on a motorway. That's not the right mode of transport. You want to take the camper, you want to immediately hit the open road, but you want to explore, you want to go find somewhere really exciting. And Yorkshire is abundant, either heading east or west from where we're based. Most people, I'll say, head east over towards Scarborough and over towards the North York Moors, but we have people that head over into the Yorkshire Dales as well. And there's just so much to explore. So Indy was created as well to be really functional. So Indy has quite an unusual pop top, which just looks like an upside down boat. But it's a full length pop top. in that you can get 2 adults sleeping downstairs, reasonably usual, reasonably normal, and 2 adults sleeping upstairs as well, which has meant it's been great to open up those doors to families who may have thought, well, actually we need a bit of space, or we've got kind of older kids that need more space. So having some of those practical things built into Indy meant that she was more accessible to more people. We also made an upgrade a little while ago where traditionally when we first converted her, she had the kind of traditional gas hob that you've probably seen in some of the other campers here and in classic campers. And that was fine, did the purpose, but we were always really determined to try and get rid of any kind of fossil fuel reliance. So a few years ago, we converted that to electric as well. So Indy has an induction hob that is a ton more efficient, gets your kettle boiled for a cup of tea so much faster. And that's all wired into the electrics from when you're plugged into the campsite as well. So those functional aspects are really, really important. The other big feature of Indy that people love, I get more questions about this than I do about the electric conversion, and Indy has what's called a flip and sit front seat. Has anybody heard of that before? No, perfect. When you see it, you might kind of go, oh yeah, it's basically a bench front seat, but the back of the seat is on like a lever, so it can rotate forwards and backwards, which allows you to have a bench seat facing forwards for when you're driving. And then when you park up and you camp, you can flip the back of the seat round to face the other way, which turns it into a sofa kind of facing into the back. It's really cool. It's really unique. And I remember when we first went to the VW festival at Harewood, way back in 2014, we saw that concept and we said, we just have to have it. We have to have something that practical that means that you increase the space within the camper. Because one of the other surprising things that people don't quite realize about a classic camper is they're actually not that big, strangely enough, especially when you're inside them, you're trying to camp in them. And the comparison I get, which nobody believes me, but bumper to bumper, a classic campervan is no longer than a Nissan Leaf, which is really odd to picture, but it's true. And that's mainly because it's got no crumple zones and no crash zones and no safety of any kind in terms of impact. But you're using every single spare inch. So if the design of the vehicle is to make something that's really utilizing all that space, then we decided at eDub to do the same thing. So that's the reason for that flipper sit front seat. And then we tried to make space of every little nook and cranny. So we have there's a drawer that's under the front seat that's filled with all your pots and your pans and things like that. We've just been really keen to say, you need to have as much space as possible, because in the north of England, if you take a camper away, even in the middle of summer, you cannot be guaranteed good weather. So you've just got to have those options of, if you are trapped inside the camper for any amount of time, then you've got some kind of space and some kind of flexibility rather than feeling really cramped in to the vehicles. Indy is also, people always ask us about charging. So charging Indy is actually incredibly important. It's another reason why we took a lot of time to make it really basic and straightforward to charge. So Indy actually charges from the campsite. So the concept of you're worrying about hiring Indy but going, oh, but I don't want to have to find a charger or work out when to stop or where to go. You don't need to do that. In fact, most of our hirers don't go to public chargers. They simply take their journey to the campsite, they plug in like every other campervan motorhome, and she has an onboard charging system that charges quite slow, doesn't charge any faster than like a little mini heater that you might have in a campervan. So that's what we tell the campsite owners as well, because they go, what are you doing charging electric vehicles from my campsite? So, well, it's not taking any more power than that motorhome pulling a heater. And that's been built into Indy. So that happens automatically. When you arrive at the campsite, you plug in with the blue socket, just like everybody else, and it starts to slowly kind of trickle charge the main battery. And of course, you're arriving at the campsite. You're probably not arriving as soon as you go to bed. You'll probably arrive at the campsite 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You'll plug in, and then you'll have, you have your dinner, and you'll go to sleep, have your evening, go to sleep, wake up in the morning. Again, you're not going to be off crack of dawn, you're going to wait around. So by the time you've been plugged in for all of that time, bearing in mind also you haven't arrived on 0%, you probably arrived somewhere, maybe close to the bottom, but you're never on 0. So all of that time has been absolutely perfect to get people back in. And again, over and over, whenever we're having conversations with people before they hire, and they say, oh, can you help me know where I'm going to go? I'm planning to go maybe to this area or somewhere like this. And obviously they're slightly concerned. They're saying, Is the range going to be fine? How's it going to work? And time after time, we can put their minds at rest that the range is fine, but also their charging experience is just flawless. They have no issues at all. And we're really proud to have a really decent handful of kind of 5-star Google reviews that reflect that, considering it's such a unique vehicle. So Indy is available to hire. That's the primary reason I'm here, is to natter about that. But I'm guaranteed to get a ton of questions about the conversion stuff, so I'm going to touch on that very briefly. So in about 2018, I think it would have been, so we've been running Indy for a few years. What we discovered really quickly, because of the industry being so infantile / non-existent, is that we would start to have just little problems with the system. So like the charging speed wasn't quite as reliable as we wanted, or every electric vehicle has something called a battery management system. Obviously the batteries are the most kind of precious part of an electric vehicle. So managing those, making sure they are safe, making sure that they are staying at the right voltage, staying at the right temperatures are all really, really important. And the battery management systems that we have right at the beginning just weren't doing a good enough job. There were certain aspects that we thought, this just isn't filling us with the confidence that we need. If we're an individual doing it and it's our risk, it's no big deal, but we're hiring it out and it wasn't good enough. So we started to set out to research and develop how we could make Indy better. Through that journey, we were also getting lots of people contacting us and saying, hey, I love what you've done with Indy. I don't want to hire Indy. I want you to convert my campervan, or tell me how much it costs, or tell me what the process is. And we suddenly thought, we had no idea that this would be a product or a demand. And we suddenly found, well, we have technically done all the research, so why don't we start to compile that and have conversations with people about what it would take to convert other people's campers to electric. And that kind of birthed the switch in eDub. So eDub, which was predominantly eDub trips before that, took a transition to become, as a company, eDub Services, that covers both eDub trips and eDub conversions. Now, eDub conversions kind of took off slightly. So we kind of, every time we put in new technology, there would be new technology coming out. Obviously, the electric vehicle space was rapidly growing through that time as well. And we were constantly monitoring that and seeing what was coming through, what technology was coming through, better batteries, better motors, better charging, better interiors, all these things were coming through. So by the time we finish one vehicle conversion, something new will be coming along, and we'd be implementing that and turning it out. And that was really super exciting. And very quickly, the kind of weight of the business tilted that conversions was the most that we were doing in terms of time and energy and cost and things like that. And trips became not quite a side thing, but it became just a different piece of the jigsaw in terms of what we were achieving. And we still kept really firm on the passion that eDub Trips is a way to enable everybody to experience electric classic campers. And we understand that the budget required to convert a campervan to electric is substantial for some people, and that's fine. And so therefore we keep Indy on the road, because that at the very least allows people who might be passionate about electric classic campers but don't have the budget to do a conversion themselves to still take one away for a weekend, for a long week, and imagine that they've got one for a short period of time at the very least. And we get so many people that love doing that. They take them away for holiday, birthdays, all sorts of things. And we're really passionate about keeping that really close to our hearts and what we offer to individuals. So conversions has taken off. I'm going to touch on that for a little minute, and then I'm going to open up to some questions. So conversions then, we've got, so in our workshop over in Great Ousburn, we've got about 10 campervans that we're converting at the moment. One of the interesting things about electric conversions, especially because at eDub we've developed our own systems that we install into vehicles. So there are a couple of components that are kind of off the shelf, but not loads. Most of it is the stuff that we've developed ourselves. And so what that means is that when it comes to what's been on offer for these different conversions, is that's been changing over the years as we've gone through. And also that the core technology, so the batteries themselves, the motors themselves, they can obviously be transferred into different vehicles as well. So although we predominantly focus on campers, so VW classic campers, anything from a split screen, so 1950, right the way up to a late bay T2, 1979, technically, they will fit the Brazilian T2s as well. So as long as it looks like a split screen or looks like a T2, it will fit. That's fine with us. And then obviously, so many campers have been slightly modified here, there, and everywhere, and we allow for all those different spaces. But whenever people have come to us with different vehicles, so right now in the workshop we've got 2 Porsche 911s that we're also converting to electric. We've got a Morris Minor that we've converted. We've also done a VW variant and we did a Golf Mark II, we did a BMW 700. So the kind of core technology there is reasonably interchangeable between the different vehicles. What it takes is a contact or a customer to come to us and say, I love what you've done here in a VW, I want it in another vehicle. And then we can have a conversation to say, it's not a question of can it be done, it's basically a question of do you have the time and a bit of extra budget to allow our design team to kind of remanufacture something into a different vehicle. So we never say no, we are very good at giving the full options to people of what they're after with our vehicles. So I'm aware of my time, and I'm going to be kicked off soon, and questions, Q&As are always the most exciting part for me. Also remember, when I get kicked off this stage and this microphone gets taken off me, the campervan is just outside. So if you don't get an answer to me, or if you think of something new, it's just outside there. So I will be standing there until about 1:30 today. So come and grab me and come and ask the questions. So I'm going to open it up. If you've got any questions, I'd like you just to shout them at me. I'm going to repeat them down the microphone so everyone can hear them, and then I'll go ahead and do my best to answer them for me. Go on.
What's the range?
What's the range of anything, of all of them, any of them?
Best one, worst one.
Best one, worst one. Great question. The question was, what's the range? The range of our conversions. So if you go to, there's some flyers just inside the door that take you to our website where you've got a full breakdown of all the different, we summarized it into 4 different packs that we offer. E30, E40, E50, E60. E60 being the best. That one is a 62 kilowatt hour battery pack, which gives you a real world range of 175 miles. So that's based on, when you see electric vehicles advertising their range, they've done it based on a computer and a wind tunnel, and that's about it, and a rolling road. We don't have those at eDub. So instead, I send my colleague to just drive it around until it runs out. And that gives us our range. So 175, what's really interesting, we had the opportunity to test drive the new ID Buzz. So it's the VW electric kind of campervan equivalent, but it's not really. We got the opportunity to drive that when it was first released in the UK, and what we found is that the real world kind of efficiency of the ID Buzz was exactly the same as the real world efficiency of our eDub campervans, which is really interesting. Because basically they're big bricks on wheels, their aerodynamics is dreadful, and that's what it really comes down to. So the biggest enemy to your range is a heavy right foot. So if you can take it easy, so we put eco modes in our campers, so you're kind of forced to be restricted, which is sometimes good, but you've got a kind of button that gives you that launch when you need it. But yeah, 175 miles is the maximum. The minimum is, we do a 37 kilowatt hour pack, which is about 100 miles. But all of those are available with rapid charging. So we do CCS rapid charging. We've developed our own system to do that because there are a handful of the market, but they're not as reliable as ours. And that will get you topped up in half an hour, 40 minutes. Easy peasy.
Which is your favourite?
Which is my favourite? Oh, type of camper. Which is 7. 7. Sorry, everyone. Which is my favourite? I'm a bit biased, which is a T2. It's what I think. So if you are, because I have to admit, I'm not a mechanic. I've kind of become one. But I didn't come into this industry by having, greasy fingernails or just loving to tinker with cars. That's not my background. What I loved was the kind of spirit of the V-dubs, of what they kind of encompassed, what they were representing, how they looked, how they felt. That I love that when you're driving past, even just driving in earlier, I had to drive around the tarmac here. Everyone's got a smile on their face. Whether they agree with the electric or not, or they've got questions, it's a smile, isn't it? You see a classic camper and it brings that. That's what I love. And after having, and the most iconic of those, this is where I'm going to get into trouble. The most iconic of those is probably the split screen, arguably. So the split screen is iconic. Personally, the split screen is a little bit small for me. When I'm sat in the front seat of a split screen, it feels a bit cramped for me. So my preference is the T2, but at the same time, of course, each to their own.
Sway the battery was your problems.
Great question. Specifically, you said, does the weight of the battery cause problems? Fantastic. Short answer, no. And it's another brilliant reason why we chose VW campers in the first place to convert, but also why we've kept doing VW campers as well. When the split screen was first released back in 1950, it was advertised as it weighs a ton, it carries a ton. It was incredibly important for the vehicle as a concept and something that's never been done before, having a vehicle with such a high load capacity. And it was a commercial vehicle traditionally. Originally, that was its first concept, and then it got changed into a camper or a people carrier and things like that. So right from the beginning, it was designed to carry a lot of weight. So therefore, you've got a huge kind of payload allowance on that. And that's got slightly better through to the T2s as well. So T2s on average, we weigh them every time. So we weigh them when they arrive, we weigh them when we take everything out, and then we weigh them when we put our system back in again. We've also made a ton of advancements so there was a stage where our conversions was 3 separate battery boxes, just because of how they fit in, and the motors we were using, etc. But all of that adds weight from the metal that you're doing for the boxes and the steel to hold it in place. We now, and if you look at the camper outside, have just 1 battery box. So that's, again, a massive reduction in just all those extra steel fittings. But on average, it means that the weight that's added is about 170, 180 kilos, which means the total weight, so Bella, who's outside now, has a curb weight of about 1,700 kilos. Bearing in mind she has a payload of 2,000, 2,100. I don't know without checking, but T2s are somewhere around, anywhere from 2,000 up to 2,200. So it doesn't make a ton of difference. So in terms of it being problems, one is obviously the DVLA are not going to approve the vehicle if I go over the payload, so that's a big one. There's lots of other reasons the DVLA would disapprove it, so if we cover those separately. But that's number one, the weight takes care of it. We do notice, just because of vehicles being old, that sometimes suspension will be a little bit worn, torsion bars, shock absorbers they will over 50, 60 years slowly become less efficient. So there are a handful of campers that we've fitted our systems to where, the back end feels like it's full of luggage, so it bounces around a lot. So what we normally do is if we feel that, or normally just because we can, is we put some strengthened shock absorbers. So kind of just campers coilover stuff off the shelf, which does a perfectly good job. And all that's doing is stiffening up that back corner, so you've not got that wobble all around. And that also obviously makes a big difference too. If we put too much power in the back and let it too heavy, then you can end up with the Porsche scenario where you've got kind of bad steering because you're putting too much power in the back and loosening the traction on the front wheels. But the way that we design ours doesn't have that, so you feel fully in control all the way as well. Brill, any more? Anything.
Så jag säger, så jag just put this full big stuff as sushi.
So are they all other people's?
They're all push.
Yeah, so the question was, the vehicles we have in the workshop, are they mine, are they someone else's? They are all someone else's, other than Indy. Indy's the only one that we have. So all about the way that it works with customers who get in touch, we have a decent, in my opinion, of course, a decent website. We have quite a lot of YouTube content, because we feel like YouTube seems to be the best way of us telling people about what we do, because it's really in-depth, it's video stuff, people can really get a good idea of what it's all about, as opposed to just pictures and other social stuff. So we've got a ton of YouTube information, and lots of people kind of come through to us through those channels. So they're finding us on YouTube, they're searching, and then they give us a call, they drop us an email, and they say, hey, I've got this camper. Most customers already have a camper. So we did have a stage where we were offering to help them find one. We still offer that service, but so far nobody's quite bitten on that. So, or we have a few campers, like right now we have a couple of campers where they were converted, so they're already electric, converted by us a few years ago. The customers enjoyed them for a few years, and then their personal circumstances have changed, and so we're helping to move them on to new customers as well. So people get in touch and they say, what can you offer us? And then at that time, that's when we normally have a kind of video call conversation and show them what's happening in the warehouse. So we show them the vehicles we've got, the conversion systems that we have on the shelf. We can show them some of the stuff that you can't see right now, like you can't really see the motor, the drive unit, unless you want to crawl underneath, which you're welcome to do so. So we can show them those things as well. And then we have a really detailed kind of back and forth to do that process. So right now we have, I'm trying to count them up, it's about 50-50 between split screens and T2s actually at the moment, which is really unusual. When we first did our split screens, we designed the system for a T2 first, which is this one that we had. And then we tried it in a split screen. It's about that much shorter between the rear axle and the rear bumper. So we had to redesign the whole thing again and just shunt it, just squeeze everything in a tiny bit further. But that means now, yeah, all our customers' vehicles is what we're working on constantly. Quite a lot of them need restoration as well as conversion. So lots of people have got hold of a classic camper, it needs some restoration, and we can manage all that as well. So we've got a really great restoration shop down the road from us, a place called Hervey Hospital. I'm going to shout them out because they're genuinely, for anything classic camper, you need Hervey Hospital. And I've tried a few others, so yeah, Hervey Hospital are the best guys to take care of the camper. So we have this kind of flow at the moment where we've got a vehicle in the workshop and then that goes to Hervey to be painted, restored, everything comes back to us as kind of a painted but empty shell. We do our conversion, and then we have interior stuff that goes on after that. So we can do the whole package, or we can just do the conversion by what we've done here. So it varies. Round it up. That was a subtle hint. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm out of time from here. But like I said, Bella is just outside the marquee to my left. I will be hovering around there for the next hour and 15 minutes. Please come and have a look at Bella. Please come and ask me any questions that you've got. It's been really great to speak to you today. And yeah, if I can give you any more information, I'd be really happy to do so. Thank you so much.